There comes a time in a person's life when silence becomes louder than any voice, when stillness carries more weight than 1,000 arguments. Imagine yourself walking into a room full of eyes, a place where tension hangs heavy in the air. Someone hurls an accusation at you. It's not just words. It's a test, a probe, a dagger coated with poison, meant to draw you into a battle you didn't choose. Your heart beats faster. Your thoughts scramble for answers. Every instinct tells you to speak, to defend yourself, to explain, to fight fire with fire. But in that moment, a subtle truth begins to whisper in the back of your mind, a truth that Niccolò Machiavelli understood long before your accuser was even born. The truth is simple. The one who defends has already surrendered. When you defend, you kneel. You acknowledge the authority of your attacker. You accept their frame, their judgment, their stage. You place yourself in their courtroom, with them sitting as judge and jury over your reputation. And the second you do, you lose. You may argue brilliantly, you may dismantle every point they made, but it does not matter, because by answering, you revealed that their words had power over you. You showed you cared, and nothing is deadlier to strength than the appearance of needing approval. Machiavelli knew that human affairs are not ruled by truth, but by perception. And perception, like smoke, rises from the fire and frames those invisible rules of the social battlefield that decide who holds power. When you say, "That's not true, let me explain," you may believe you are setting the record straight, but you are not. You are stepping into their arena, playing by their rules. And no matter how cleverly you play, you've already admitted they have the right to demand answers. To defend is to kneel. To kneel is to lose. The powerful man never kneels. He lets the accusation burn in the air like incense, until the one who threw it chokes on their own words. Think of it like this. When a predator is accused of being dangerous, does it call a press conference? Does it write an apology letter? Does it gather the prey to explain that, actually, it is misunderstood? Of course not. The predator just stares. And in that stare lies something more terrifying than words. Silence, when held with calm power, cuts deeper than the sharpest rebuttal. It plants doubt in the minds of the crowd. Why didn't he respond? Does he know something we don't? Did the accusation bounce off him because it wasn't even worth noticing? That pause, that quiet, becomes the battlefield. And suddenly, the accuser is fighting shadows they cannot touch. The man who understands this becomes untouchable. He doesn't explain. He doesn't beg for understanding. He doesn't grovel for validation. His silence is the thundercloud that makes others tremble. His stillness is the mirror in which his enemies see themselves unravel. And here lies the essence of Machiavelli's wisdom. It is not your words that matter, but your frame, your aura, the unshakable impression you leave when others expect you to react. Picture this scene, a business dinner. Glasses clink, polite laughter fills the air, when suddenly someone takes a shot at you. You always think you're the smartest guy in the room. All eyes shift. This is the moment most men fear. Most men stumble into an explanation. No, that's not true. And in that instant, their status collapses. But the man who understands Machiavelli pauses. He lets the words sit in the air. No smile, no words, only calm stillness. He looks at the speaker, and the silence stretches long enough for discomfort to spread. Now the room is no longer laughing. It is watching. And the attacker, once bold, begins to squirm, because silence is not neutral. Silence shifts the spotlight. Silence reframes the entire encounter until everyone begins to question not you, but the one who dared to strike. This is the reversal. The man who speaks to defend himself becomes guilty, even if he wins. The man who holds silence becomes untouchable, even if the accusation was sharp. Power is not in the words. Power is in the refusal to answer to them, and in that refusal lies a deeper truth. Mystery is power. The more others understand you, the less they fear you. Every explanation strips away the fog, the uncertainty, the weight of possibility. But when you withhold, when you remain unreadable, people fill in the blanks with their own fears. And human beings almost always overestimate those who speak. Little. Think of history's greatest figures, men of empire, leaders of crime, titans of business. They were rarely the loudest. They were rarely the ones rushing to defend. They let their presence do the talking. Silence is not absent. Is presence distilled into its purest form. Machiavelli's genius lay in seeing what others overlook. He knew that silence tortures the insecure. An accuser wants a fight. They want a clash, a spectacle, proof that their words drew blood. When you give them silence, you give them a mirror. They throw another accusation, louder now, more desperate. They add details, exaggerations, plead for the crowd's approval. But the silence holds, and soon they are no longer accusing you, they are revealing themselves. Their desperation is on display, their insecurity laid bare, while you remain untouched. Sitting above the storm they created, silence alone is a weapon, but Machiavelli knew there was an even sharper edge. The reframe. When you do choose to speak, you do not defend. You flip the accusation back on the attacker. They say, you're manipulative. You answer, only those who can't be influenced think that. They say, you're arrogant. You reply, confidence tends to bother. The insecure. Notice what happened here. You did not justify yourself. You did not accept their frame. You attacked the frame itself, turning their words into a reflection of their weakness. And suddenly, they are the one defending, scrambling, stumbling over their own accusations. This is not cruelty. It is clarity. It is the art of never letting someone else define your place in the hierarchy. Because if you accept their words, you kneel. If you reframe, you make them kneel instead. But perhaps the most ruthless move of all is disappearance. Imagine someone shouting your name, insulting you in front of a crowd, and you do not even flinch. Not silence with eye contact. Not a calculated pause. Nothing. You vanish. You make no sign that their existence touched yours. For certain people, this is unbearable. They want your attention more than anything. When you do not give it, they spiral. They push harder, they raise their voice, they seek allies, and with each desperate move they reveal themselves as weak. And while they rage, you remain untouchable, unmoved, elevated by the very refusal to descend into their battlefield. This is the paradox of power. The less you defend yourself, the stronger you appear. Because defense is always reactive, always. Secondarily, always a form of chasing. The man who explains is chasing approval. The man who justifies is chasing belief. The man who stays still is chased. He becomes the center, the mountain others must climb, the riddle others must solve. There is a certain kind of aura that grows from this. It is not a reputation, for reputations are fragile. One rumor can destroy them. One whisper can poison. Them aura is different. Aura is presence, something built not from the approval of others, but from the refusal to be ruled by their judgments. Aura says, I do not need your validation. I am whole, untouchable, self-contained. And once you carry this aura, attacks no longer stick. Accusations evaporate before they land. The crowd senses it, and slowly, something extraordinary begins to happen. They defend you. Because when you refuse to defend yourself, you do not look guilty, you look above the fray. And people admire that. They see the unfairness, the desperation of the attacker, and they step in to shield you. They do it not because you asked, not because you begged, but because your calm dignity demands respect. And what is more powerful than being defended not by your own words, but by the voices of others who step forward uninvited? That is when you know you have ascended to the level where you no longer need to fight. Others fight for you. The path is not easy. It demands self-control, patience, the ability to watch insults fall without flinching. But once mastered, it makes you unstoppable. You are no longer a man swayed by opinion, no longer a prisoner of explanation. You become a figure others cannot pin down, cannot define, cannot move. They shout, they accuse, they demand, and you remain untouchable. That is the Machiavellian secret. The strongest man is not the one who shouts the loudest. The strongest man is the one who never needs to explain why he is strong. The most dangerous truth about defending yourself is not just that it makes you look weak. It is that it trains you to live in reaction. You become addicted to the eyes of others, their approval, their understanding. Every word you speak to explain who you are, every justification you give, every plea for fairness, it binds you tighter to their judgment. You become a prisoner in chains of your own making, waiting for someone else to declare you innocent. And what is innocence in a world ruled by perception? It is nothing. Innocence is a costume the crowd tears apart when it grows bored. The man who waits to be proven innocent is already guilty of weakness. This is why Machiavelli urged princes to care less for what is true and more for what is believed. Power does not spring from facts, it flows from frames. And the strongest frame is indifference, the ability to show the world. Say what you like, it does not touch me. Such indifference is not coldness. It is fire under control, passion held behind iron doors. Because only the man who is sure of himself can afford to appear unmoved. And this sureness radiates, it spreads like heat, until even your enemies begin to doubt their own accusations. Think of the accuser as a fisherman, casting bait into the water. Each word, each jab, each accusation is a hook designed to catch you. When you defend, you bite. You get hooked, dragged into their frame, pulled into their world. But when you glide past, when you let the bait sink untouched, something extraordinary happens. The fisherman grows frustrated. He throws in bigger bait, shouts louder, splashes the water. And the more desperate he becomes, the more foolish he looks. Meanwhile, you swim untouched, sovereign in your silence. This is not just self-protection. This is domination, because you turned their weapon into a mirror that reflected only their hunger, not your weakness. Machiavelli lived in a time when words could kill. A whisper at court could send you to the dungeon or the executioner's block. Yet he observed that those who tried hardest to defend themselves were often the first to fall. Their frantic denials painted them as guilty. Their explanations made them look desperate. But those who refused to defend, who stood silent or even laughed at the accusations, often walked away untouched. Why? Because silence is not absence, it is strength under disguise. The world assumes that if you do not fight for your innocence, you must not fear guilt. And if you do not fear, you must be strong. It is not that you never speak. There are moments when words carefully chosen can flip the entire game. But Machiavelli would say, never speak to defend. Speak only to reframe, to plant doubt, to reverse the attack. When someone calls you ruthless, you do not deny it. You say, ruthlessness is simply the courage to do what others are too timid to face. Now what happens? The crowd is split. Half admire you, half fear you, but no one pities you. And pity, make no mistake, is the most poisonous of all positions. For the pitied are always beneath, always small, always begging. Better to be feared, better to be respected, better even to be hated than to be pitied. Look at how the great figures of history mastered this dance. Caesar was accused of ambition. He did not waste time denying it. He simply marched, conquered, and let his victories rewrite the narrative. Napoleon was called arrogant. He never explained. He acted, and in his actions, the accusations dissolved like mist in the morning sun. Even in the modern world, those who rise highest are those who speak least when accused, who allow their results, their presence, their aura to do the speaking. The weak demand recognition, the strong command it through silence, and here is where the strategy deepens. Silence alone is not enough. It must be paired with presence. If you remain silent but appear small, nervous, shrunken, then silence betrays you. But if you remain silent while holding yourself with calm power, eye steady, body unmoved, then silence becomes unbearable to your attacker, because they are not just fighting words, they are fighting an aura. Aura is the invisible shield around you, the unspoken truth that radiates from your posture, your gaze, your stillness. It says, I do not need to explain myself, because I am already above your frame. But how does one cultivate such aura? It is not given by birth. It is built like a fortress. You build it each time you resist the urge to explain yourself. Each time you let the storm rage without stepping into it. Each time you allow silence to speak for you. Slowly, you train the world to see you as untouchable. And the more untouchable you appear, the less anyone dares to test you. This is the hidden mathematics of power. Every time you defend, your value shrinks. Every time you refuse, your value rises. Do not mistake this for arrogance. It is not arrogance, it is sovereignty. It is the refusal to be ruled by the court of public opinion. Arrogance is loud, desperate, constantly demanding attention. Sovereignty is quiet, serene, beyond reach. And sovereignty is what Machiavelli admired most. The prince, who is sovereign in himself, does not fear the gossip of courtiers, nor the whispers of rivals. He knows that every man who accuses him does so from a place of envy or weakness, and so he smiles, he waits, he lets the noise burn itself out. And this, perhaps, is the deepest secret. Time destroys accusations faster than words. Defend yourself today, and you lock yourself in battle forever. Stay silent today, and tomorrow the world forgets. The crowd is fickle. They chase novelty, scandal, the next drama. If you remain untouched, if you do not feed the fire, they grow bored and move on. Your silence is the grave in which their accusations are buried. And when the dust clears, you are still standing, stronger for having endured without flinching. Think again of the predator. When the prey screams, the predator does not respond. When the jungle whispers, the predator does not explain. It moves. When it chooses, and its very indifference is terror. This is how you must carry yourself. Let them talk. Let them whisper. let them plot. You remain untouchable. Because the moment you defend, you descend from the throne and sit at the table of beggars. But if you never descend, if you hold your silence, you remain king. And so the lesson unfolds like a blade. Never defend yourself. Not to your enemies. Not to your rivals. Not even to your friends. For if they truly know you, they need no defense. And if they doubt you, no defense will be enough. Defending yourself is like pouring water into a civet. Drains endlessly, never fills, never satisfies. But when you refuse, when you hold your ground, when you let the accusations die in silence, you show the world something far greater than innocence. You show them sovereignty. Machiavelli's trick is not a trick at all, it is a way of being. To stand unshaken, to let the noise of men pass through you like wind through stone. The man who masters this becomes more than a man. He becomes a presence, a shadow larger than himself, a figure that others cannot reduce, cannot box in, cannot destroy. And while they waste their energy throwing accusations like stones, he stands unmoved, the mountain against which their efforts shatter. And when they finally grow tired, when their voices fade, when the dust settles, the world looks at you differently. You did not defend, and yet you are still standing. You did not explain, and yet you are still respected. You did not plead, and yet you are more powerful than before. This is the paradox. This is the secret. The less you fight for your innocence, the more invincible you become. So the next time someone demands that you explain yourself, remember this: to defend is to kneel. To kneel is to lose. And to refuse is to win without ever raising a hand. That is Machiavelli's gift to those wise enough to use it. Not the path of noise, not the trap of explanation, but the silent strength of sovereignty. The strength that outlasts, outshines, and outlives every attack. Because in the end, history remembers not the words of the accusers, but the silence of the sovereign.